Hello, my name is Paul Archer. Welcome back to Building Brand Advocacy, and I'm incredibly excited to welcome Zarina Stanford. Hey, how's it going?
Doing well, thank you. And good day to you, mate.
And to you, yes, from a typically cloudy London day to you over in Austin. Zarina, tell us who you are, who you work for, and a little bit about your history that kind of got you here to be talking to me today.
Okay, well, thank you, first of all, for inviting me. I appreciate that. I am here at Bazaarvoice. I'm the CMO here and having a blast because most of what we really do is serving people like us, in terms of what could brands do? What are the things that we need to do? And how do we connect with the shoppers and with the consumers? Speaking of consumers, this is, the consumer space is a new space for us, for me, for that matter. I've always been in the technology space, mostly in the B2B world, with companies like IBM, SAP, and large organizations. And I couldn't be more thrilled to be here representing Bazaarvoice. And thank you for the opportunity.
No, it's amazing. Let's before we jump into some of those things around Bazaarvoice, I'm gonna ask you, what's your favorite brand and why?
That's a great one. So I'm going to put this in three categories, if I may. Okay. So from wearing and just casuals and what have you, a few that I would name, I range anywhere from like Levi's and Ralph Lauren and some of the really traditional brands as well. I think they're classic. They are timeless. And I like to be one of those timeless so that I can hang with my Gen Z as well as my boomers for that matter. So that's a little bit about me. And the other brands I really, really love. And just because I go there so often, I actually like TJ Maxx. I think they are a retailer that, or TK Maxx, right, in London, because you give a lot of value, and I love just kind of like a treasure hunt, and you just go and you don't know what you're gonna find, and you find this, oh my gosh, that's amazing. The third one that's always a bellwether for me is in merchandise would be Nordstrom, and in a little accentuating jewelry would be Tiffany.
Nice. Okay, well, quite a lot, quite a diverse choice there. And I'm,
I'm
I'm sure.
eclectic, I feel like I said.
Well, I mean, given Bazaarvoice, your relatively recent employer, how long's it been?
So I joined Bazaarvoice in November. So I just passed and entering in my eighth month, and it's been an absolute blast. And now I'm gonna have to put a little plug here. Uh, I have had some families of mine asking, so what is it that you do? What is the name of the company? And and I said that in our all hands just a couple of weeks ago. I love whoever named us as Bazaarvoice 17 years ago did a phenomenal job. I fell in love with the word voice. I think especially brand makers and all of you having that voice to carry is an important part, and also resounding with the shopper's voice, the consumer's voice. So that's really the premise of how the company was built. And I previously had to warm up to the word bazaar, but I love Istanbul. I love India. I love, in fact, the modern day of bazaar, kind of like a TJ Maxx for that matter, right? TK Maxx. And where you go in and you find things and treasure things, and that's the marketplace. So when you put bazaar and voice together, it's actually the voice of the marketplace.
Brilliant.
That's what we do.
And also, you're pretty well established in terms of what you do. I think of all those brands, I'm sure you work with a good chunk of them. Is it 12,000 brands now?
Yeah, exactly. We're really, really proud to be serving about 12,000 brands and retailers around the world.
So that must put you in quite a unique position in terms of getting some insight. So, bit of a crazy time that we've been going through over the past couple of years since COVID. What have been some of the trends that you've been able to pull out that brands that you're seeing across the world of brand building?
That's really, really, I love this question because at the heart of it, what is it that we can learn? And number one, it has to be from the shoppers and from the consumers. Presumably, most of you are, B2C, and your number one most important voice is that of your consumer. And so from that standpoint, here are some stats that actually they're telling us as an example. The first and foremost, the first trend is what we think of digital, social, or any variations of commerce. There's only one commerce. And that one commerce is wherever there is a shopper. So in reality, the blending of the online, offline, in-store all surrounds to, if there's a shopper, there's commerce, there's transaction. And the one thing, since you mentioned about the pandemic now entering now into the endemic world, the behavior that many of us has formulated, because we were all locked down and can't go anywhere, and you started shopping even more and more, so like Facebook, TikTok, and those places got to be even more pervasive. That behavior is actually sustaining. So shoppers in today, even though about 30% of them plus are actually returning to stores, they're still doing the same thing. They still want to go look at what are the people talking about this jacket? What are they talking about this? What do they say? This whole power of the word of mouth is actually accentuated not only in social or digital commerce, but also in store. It is phenomenal. And but this really came from, we actually do an annual study, what we call Shoppers Experience Index. And we just rolled that out back in April timeframe. So for any of you who would like to learn more about it, go to our website and look for it.
And so where do you see some of the main opportunities that are emerging now post-COVID?
Two things. I think one is for any of the brands that actually has both a brick and mortar as well as online presence. You can name most of them for that matter. It's really, really the opportunity is how to seamlessly thread that experience for your shoppers. So as an example, case in point, right? When I was locked down and I started shopping things and I started looking, in fact, 80% of us all look at, other people's review, what other people say, what the product's telling me before or during the time when you're actually in the store. So what if you can begin to put QR codes or a kiosk, or allow your shoppers when they come back to your brick and mortar to have that experience so that I'm touching it now. I'm touching this jacket that you're wearing as an example. But what are people saying about it? And I can actually scan and have the same ability to see what other people are doing. That's number one. Bringing this seamless experience truly above and beyond what we used to call omnichannel. This is really omnipresence. It's like at the moment, everywhere and anywhere. And I think the second one is, and we're seeing humongous rise in here, is leveraging other people's voices, such as influencers and other shoppers like us. Because at the end of the day, one of the constant that as much as commerce has changed, the constant hasn't changed being human to human. We were just talking about, right? I mean, wow, I love that jacket. Where did you get it? And then you try it on because it's your girlfriend or your boyfriend's, jacket. And then you go, wow, I like it. Then the next thing is that you go online and you like it enough, you're going to just go ahead and get one. And if you're in that store, you just do that instinct. In our world, we call this conversion. But I won't bore you with the business side of it.
Well, I mean, I'm fascinated by it. And when you're kind of shopping in a digital world, how can brands bring that sort of physical shopping experience that you obviously can't get when you're looking at your screen? You can't touch things, you can't feel things. Like, how can someone replicate that? Do you think it lives in, I know reviews is quite an obvious one, and obviously you guys do a lot of that, but like, how else can a brand sort of bring that experience to life in a digital sphere?
So my number one advice for brands, if you have a merchandise, feature a shopper using your merchandise. So if you're in a houseware, this bowl and this whisk, feature an actual shopper or an actual consumer using it. And if you are in, apparels, feature someone who is one of your target audience, your target persona, have them wear it. And this isn't just me saying it. These are from the same study that we've been doing. Shoppers are telling us that they believe an ad, for that matter, right, or content that is featuring someone like them, whether it's a shopper or an influencer, doesn't matter, versus that of a branded content. It is tremendously powerful. I think that the other thing that we are now at Bazaarvoice really starting to advance this concept is that there is a supply chain issue we all face, right, as the part of COVID, and we all learned from it dearly. And for each of you as brand marketers, we have the exact same supply chain challenge, which is content. Content supply chain, we can't, as a brand, create fast enough and constantly, and the most current content than our users. So why would we think that we should create all the branded content ourselves? I myself am telling my team to say, hey, leverage other people and leverage the genuine users of our own capabilities, of our own solutions. It's the same thing for if you're in apparel, if you're luxury goods in particular, by the way, and if you're in beauty, if you're in things that are really very consumable, and even in food and beverages. Just showing someone consuming it would be a huge part. And in some cases, you don't even have to be the one to create it. Harness them, and I think this is a self-plug here, allow us to help you, distribute those content, allow us to help you curate them. It's really tremendously powerful.
So what's the data on that? I mean, how much better does user-generated content perform than normal content? Do you have anything on that? Or is there conversion rates on product display pages that have UGC on it? Do you have anything like that?
Well, I'm going to cite 3 of them, if I may, okay? So first and foremost, we really have been carrying a lot of benchmark data, ROIs from a return and investments perspective, conversion king and queen. Right, we can see data anywhere from 167% all the way to above 200% conversion. If there is content that is actually served either on your PDP, on your product pages, or in your syndicated network. And imagine the power of the syndicated network. That same review could be seen 5 times at different stages, at different channels that your shoppers may be coming at. That, number one, conversion increase. Secondly, in fact, I think it's okay for me to tease it out. We haven't even released this yet. We've recently done a total economic impact with Forrester. And when it comes out, you'll see amazing 4x kind of ROIs and less than 3 months of payback period. Phenomenal in terms of investment using like a Bazaarvoice platform to help them. But there is something even more important, I think, especially since we're talking to brand makers and brand shepherds, that your brand carries powerfully with the voices of your consumers, much more so than we saying who we are. Just bringing it right to home. I could say all day long how great and how phenomenal, how amazing Bazaarvoice is. But to have just seen a particular video that someone put into our G2, it was so powerful. It melts my heart when I hear him talking about, I love everything about these people. I love about their customer service. I love about I can't pay to have that. That's the priceless piece about leveraging kind of like what you do, Paul, the advocates, right? It's all about helping and harnessing and earning. I think this is the important part, is about earning. You can't ask people to be your advocates. You have to earn it. And if you earned your shoppers and if you earned your consumers, you have earned them by right and by your products and by who you are and every attribute of your particular brand. So I'm sorry, I'm going kind of philosophical here.
Well, I mean, I completely agree in that. It's one of those things that I think we say over here as well. That basically, we can't help a brand build their brand because your brand is synonymous with your reputation. They are one and the same. Your reputation is your reputation. But what we can do is help you amplify that, spread it wider, get more from that reputation, get more people sort of engaging with it. But at the end of the day, it's you that builds it. You have to earn that right to be able to go there. But the best brands in the world have earned that in buckets. And then it's kind of like, how does that become more of a channel for growth instead of spending that money on Facebook ads, for example?
Yeah. Paul, you just mentioned something that I'm very, very convicted on, and so I wanted to kind of bring that out. There's a lot of talk about brand voice and brand trust, right? Brand equity at the end of the day is the most important. I would transcend, especially for those of you who are house of brands, every product, every brand, literally that particular brand that you have carries that same integrity, that same trust that you want to build. And so holistically, when it comes to your content, or when it comes to user content, or when it comes to who your voice is, we have to really underscore being authentic. And I think that would be the one other thing that I would really, really want to appeal to my peers here around the world is being authentic means a lot of things. First of all, being authentic will earn us that trust that we were just talking about. But how do you become authentic? What does it mean to be authentic? And if I may just bring home to the example, because it's everyday business for us, is that when we look at someone, let's say Paul, a consumer, Zarina, a consumer, or John, a consumer, when we say something and provide a review about something that we want to talk about in social, first of all, it has to be a real person. It cannot just be a bot. It cannot just be something, let's just use algorithms to do it. It doesn't work. Mm-hmm. It has to be. And the second one is that if it is about a particular subject, let's just talk about product review as an example. It has to have content that appeals and talk about that particular product. Or just showing up in a review, doesn't mean anything, because I, as a recipient, as a fellow shopper, I want to know what you think about that product A. I want to know what you feel and how you experience it. And being able to be truly authentic is what people value, is what businesses value. And that is why it is so critical to truly be, not just as a person, it's above and beyond that. It's about when you're going to comment about something, it has to be truly authentic. And I just think that all of us in the brand space, that's probably our number one most important asset.
I love that and completely agree. What's the inverse of this? What are some of the things that brands do that they should not do that are inauthentic?
It's instantaneously the moment you say that, let me just put pragmatics to it. That and we hear this often, that sometimes brand feels like, well, I just want to have positive things. I don't want negative things. But the fact is that the positive and the negative combination creates the real authentic reality. So just recently, a few months ago, and I'm sure that I don't want to name the brand, but we all know that here in the US, a particular brand were fined $4.2 million for suppressing negative reviews. It is that practical. So that's the money side. But I think more importantly is the erosion of your brand. And what if you're a 100-year brand, if you're a 17-year brand like us, if you are a 500-year-old brand, that one incident can erode so much of your brand equity of all the generations before you, including you, who had put the effort and the soul to build it. It's too high of a price to pay. And, we all know, and there's a Forbes study a few years ago that talk about brand equity could actually equal to almost 50%, or in some cases, more than 50% of the actual value, the financial value of a particular brand. So if you are $100 million brand, if you are a $10 billion brand, to have potentially 50% of your value eroded just because not being authentic, I don't even want to go there.
I mean, it could even be more, there is nothing else that matters other than your reputation, and that is your brand. And so,
well, and we have seen many brands who just disappear on earth, right? They're no longer here.
Exactly. Yeah. We live in the cancel world right now, and it's not just for humans, it's for brands as much as anything else. And so the easiest way is to be true to yourself, to be authentic, and to take the hard road. That may not be, it may not be the easiest, but by being authentic, you will benefit in a much longer run, because it's what leads to word of mouth, and word of mouth is by far and away the most effective way of growing a brand, and it's free. So why would you not do that?
Okay, Paul, you just said the magic word. And if I may just write on it a little bit. I think us as content creators, we as brand holders have been trained and brainwashed too much of something we want to do, I have to pay for. But there are so many things that we can earn it, and it has zero cost to it, such as what we've been talking about, the whole user-generated content piece of it. So much of it is earned, it's free. So my question to all of us, and I've been asking my same team on it, is that if I pay this much on my paid content, on my paid media, what if I just put 1% or 10% of what I would be spending and divert it to groom the community, the advocates, some cases, maybe even influencers, to have them genuinely and authentically talk about our brand and our products. That would yield, remember the 167 to about 200%, 300% conversion rate? Pure math says to me, it's a no-brainer. So if I were to describe this phenomenon, because I can't show you the slides, I'm just going to describe it. Have you been to a seesaw? You remember when we were kids, we'd use the seesaw? So imagine now you have a seesaw, and normally they would be flat without anybody sitting on it. And what we've been doing is we heavily skewed on, there's a lot of seesaws this way, on paid content, on paid media. But paid media, and the researchers have been telling us, shoppers don't believe as much of the sponsored content as against the user content. So what if we switch over that pivot and that seesaw, or at least have a more and strategy? One of my colleagues, I'm gonna give him a shout out from PepsiCo. He just mentioned that he came to my meeting last week and talked about this and strategy. So what if you balance the paid, earned, and the owned, so that your seesaw can be not tipped over only because of paid? Anyway, that's another conversation on another time.
Well, I that does sound very much like our pitch. So if you ever want to come to Julie, you can just tell our pitch for it. But I think
I'm going to do that.
One of the symptoms that I've seen, or maybe one of the causes I've seen, is that over the past 10 years, but before that, we were never able to measure anything. There was no attribution of sales. And so as soon as then brands started to come online, and then you're able to sell online, then suddenly you're able to track ads to a sale. And that's never happened before. And so actually then I get the feeling that many people now believe that just because we can track some of it, that means that we expect to track all of it. And it's still not the case. The vast majority of sales that happen cannot be attributed accurately. And so it's just that you've got a little bit of knowledge that's actually causing a lot of danger. And so all the money is flowing into these very narrow channels out of the more general brand building channels that have been around for many years, the ones that are building advocacy, the ones that are building brand and reputation. And actually, I think COVID was a tipping point, as you were saying on that seesaw. Is it's now become so expensive to acquire users through the conventional paid channels that it needs to equal out because it's unfair. There is no way that brands can actually succeed as money-making businesses at the cost of acquisition as it stands.
Absolutely. And in fact, love to pick up on this at another time as well, too, in terms of what are the pragmatics and the mathematics behind it. And we can certainly go into that. One thing I wanted to add to what you said is that if we think about the traditional, what I call the old bazaar versus the new connected bazaar, if you will, we used to think that there is a long way and a funnel that buyers will go through. Well, that's part of the big part about attribution as well, right? Can I go to step 1, step 2, and then eventually I go into the actual transaction? But at this point in time, the person could just simply say, the shopper just say, I just love what I saw. And instantaneously, she just go to an online channel or one of the social channels or go to a store, whichever the preference, and instantaneously buy. That power of conversion and condensing the conversion time is what we each as brand owners have to think about. We're all about, if you are for profit, you're trying to get to your revenue, you're trying to get to number of shoppers, you're trying to get to share voice or share wallet. And if I can get there faster and much more trusted, leveraging the word of mouth and this peer-to-peer and this user element of the content and the surround that comes with it, we are all going to be much more powerful, which is why powerful in a positive light, right? Which is why I think that in sales and commerce and marketing, truly, I don't think there has been a better world to be in this C2C world that we live in, consumer to consumer. It's instantaneous. It's trusted. It's in huge volumes. How many brands are there on Earth? I'm going to make this up. Let's say 1 million. But there's 7 billion population on Earth. And if they would just each say one word about your product, think about how far you have gone.
Of that. And, the whole purpose of a lot of the brand building activities that we normally spend a lot of money on is to build trust, to build reputation, to educate people as to why that product is superior to another product. But actually, if your best friend who you trust more than anything says, buy that product, you buy that product, and then you go on and buy it continuously, possibly for the rest of your life. It's a quite a attractive proposition to any brand.
Absolutely. And you also hinted on it, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it out, is that once the individual, myself included, right, I kind of find ourselves in the tribe that we want to be, we want to continue to be a part of that community. We want to continue to self-identify. We want to continue to have that voice. And which is why, to go back to your earlier question in terms of what are some of the brands can capitalize on, this community approach is huge. Part of it is building on the human nature of our sense of belonging, of our want to be and our desire to be a member of a tribe. And that's why building community, and that's why we actually acquired a part of the business really specifically to do that and to really harness and the voices of the community and the wisdom of the community is huge. And I think that's why, so many of you who's done loyalty programs, who's done a special, master, like what Starbucks used to do, the mayors of the store, that is powerful. And putting a plug, we will be releasing a study on this whole gamification and experience, what 10,000 shoppers are telling us what they want. It's phenomenal. Amazing. And I love listening to them because we are one of them.
And we all are. We're all consumers. So I look forward to hearing that when you've got it published. So we kind of talked about what's going on right now, but if you were to get your crystal ball out, What do the next couple of years look like? We heading down the barrel of a recession? How are brands going to be adapting? What would be your big predictions if you were to be able to dig into your future self?
Yeah, okay, yeah. And so I think the future is actually now. I mean, it's like the next second. I don't think we need to wait 2 years from now, but I will go there as well. I think the first part is that because, you know, I think the consensus would suggest that we are going to come to a bit of an economic adjustment. And I think, therefore, for those of us who owns budget on telling or marketing your brand, your products, and your services, has to really scrutinize and anchor on the most important thing, which is the measurement of return on investment. If I have the chance to put $10,000 or 10,000 pounds on one thing versus $10,000 or 10,000 pounds on something else, the first meter that I'm going to adjust would be, what is my return? If the same dollar is going to give me $5 in return or £5 in return versus something that is $50 or 50 pounds, we all know where we're going to go. I think in recessionary times, we as budget holders has got to be even much more diligent and really protecting our business's money just as it is yours. Right? You want that value. You want that, margin. You want that value that is truly going to be lasting. So that's one. I also think that for some of us and certain brands, you are in much more opportune time when it comes to a bit of a economic adjustment. So as an example, I'm just going to shout this out, right? For any of you who maybe you own a home or you rent a home, and your ability to switch over, and if you happen to you own your home and you have a mortgage regardless of which part of the country, the world that you live in, that the tendency towards staying and doing home improvement is going to be higher than that of something else. And in fact, I learned this from my cohorts from the P&G space, from the CPG space, that in recessionary times, consumer goods like beverages and food and snack actually rises on consumption. It's a little bit sad in the sense when you don't go out anymore, so you just consume more in your household or what have you. I think we have to really look at what industry and what sectors and what customers and what consumers we're serving and help them yield that value and help them harness that value. In terms of crystal balls, I'm going to say three things. And I first would say the rise of the purchasing power and the market by Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Huge. Together, they would be more than 30% of the consumer market. And if your brand hasn't figured out something to go make them relevant and to talk to them and listen to them, I would say start now. There are, I'm trying to remember the statistics, somewhere around 2.8 million alpha, who are people who are born anywhere after 2012 and later. There are 2.8 million of them born every day. They are the people who influences their mom, their dad, who are in the Gen Z, who happens to be children of baby boomers. So that's kind of their voice. And one of the stats that I'll cite that basically highlights Gen Z, I have two of them at home, they're very vocal. They want to be heard. They actually like to participate in product reviews. It's amazing. So that's the first thing. The first crystal ball is that you have to do that. The second one is that I'm on the camp to say that it doesn't have to be right now, but in the next 2 years, if you are a B2C brand, particularly maybe even luxury and other places, if you haven't figured out a metaverse strategy, you may start now. It doesn't mean to say getting crazy and what have you, but there are some areas that we should all probably start to look at because shoppers are looking for experience. They're looking for experience that's up and down, left and right, and everywhere around them. And that's part of what the metaverse, Web3 kind of offers. And lastly, and I talk about, we being now in a consumer to consumer space, absolutely leverage the voice of your shoppers. And they are the one who has scale, who has the authenticity, and who has the skin in the game, and who has the voice to help you do whatever your brand needs to do and whatever your product needs to do.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, that's pretty comprehensive in terms of the future and where you see it. So kind of trying to summarize that, if a brand came to you, a consumer brand came to you, and they said, right, I've got 50 grand to spend, Zarina, like I can only do it on one thing. How should I spend that money? How would you recommend they spend it today?
Now I'm going to declare my authenticity. One way of declaring that is that if you have a bias, say so. I do have a bias, and because part of it is our business, I would say put that $50,000 to figure out how to amplify the voices of your customers on behalf of you. Purely advocates, influencers, but most importantly, give them a platform of choice so that they can express. So, we'll be happy to help you maximize that 50,000. But I really mean that. I think that content, authentic content, and non-branded content is, for that matter, the media, and plays it on social media, plays it on your store, is going to yield more return on that 50,000 than you could imagine.
Brilliant. Amazing advice there. And so finally, I think I want to kind of close it on there. Like, one last question is, like, where do people find you if they want to get in touch with you? How do they go about doing that?
Okay, well, so I'm very active on LinkedIn, so it's just at Zarina Stanford, and for here is zarina.stanford@bazaarvoice.com. But just come on to our site, come on, and I am not a believer of email, so that is not where you will not find me. Yeah, but I hope to meet many of you on these podcast series and a number of other places that I'm also present at as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul.